Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday market snapshot for the Ottawa real estate market for Monday, July 15th, 2024. My name is Annalie Rice. I'm a realtor here in Ottawa, Ontario, and every week I bring you the details of what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. Let's go. Okay, so first off, citywide, we see that the inventory levels climbed this week just a little bit, just slightly in the detached and condo market, but a little bit more in the townhome market. Sales this week also rebounded. Last week was a bit of a drop because of the long weekend, so this was fully expected. It didn't climb back up, you'll see in the next slide, but it didn't climb up by as much as it dropped off, but that's also normal since we're getting into the summer. Most of the increase in sales were in the detached and towns. The number of condos selling this week were actually a little bit lower. Okay, so this is the graphic form for the inventory. So we see the overall inventory bounce back up just a little bit this week, as did the active inventory, that's the green. We see the sales also jump back up, and conditional sales were down slightly this week, which makes sense a little bit because there were fewer sales last week, so fewer conditional sales last week. So it'll take a couple weeks for it to level out again. Okay, so for new listings this week, we had 472 properties that were listed this week. 146 of those, which represented 31%, were relisted properties. That's the gray line at the bottom. And there were 326 properties that were new listings. So that's the blue one, new to the market listings. And that was 69%. And obviously you can see the sales there that jumped up this week as well. So I looked back at the same week last year, and we had the exact same number to the number of new listings to the market this week as compared to last year, the same week. The difference is that we had about 40% more relisted properties. That's just a function of the fact that we've got so many more properties on the market, lots of inventory. People want it to look fresh. And interestingly, our sales are a little bit higher than what they were the same week last year. It's about 15% higher. Okay, so when we break down the sales that we had this week, we had 254 sales this past week. 18% of those sales were without any conditions, so that was just down by one than last week, and just sitting again just slightly below that 20% that we've seen for the last few months. And we had 24% of the sales were at or above the asking price. So you can see that that's significantly come down since what we saw in the early spring market, and we'll see whether or not it sort of levels out at that point. For the sales within 7 days, we had 30 properties that sold within 7 days on the market, was 12% of the sales. Of those 7-day or less sales, 53% of those sold with no conditions, and that was down by 20%. If you recall last week's report, it was like an increase of 39% or something. So this is bringing it back closer to normal. I think last week's was a spike high. This is a little bit more normal. So just over half were with no conditions, and 70% were at or above the asking price. And that was down by 3%. So just a minor change there. So for the properties that sold within 30 days of being on the market, it was 51% of the sales, which represented 136 properties this week. 18% of those sold with no conditions. That's the same as the overall average. And 33% of those sold at or above asking. So that's a little bit higher than the overall average, which totally makes sense. Okay, so this week we had a total of 60 homes that sold at or above asking price. 41 of those, which was 68%, sold at asking or up to 1% over asking. 14 of them sold between 1 and 5% above asking price. That was 23%. And 4 homes sold for more than 5% of their asking price. That's 7% of the sales. So the highest percentage over was 29%. It also was the highest dollar value. It was $115,600 over asking. It was a detached 3-bedroom home in Stittsville that was listed at $399,900, which is obviously really low. It sold for $515,500, which is also very low for a detached home in one of the most popular areas of the city. Now, it was a power of sale, so family selling off the home after someone passed away, but it was also noted in there in the comments that it was a hoarder house and that it was coming with all the stuff. So who knows what the condition was. They had 0 pictures of the inside of the house. Now, I did want to mention when I did these stats, there were 5 homes that had sold for more than 5%. There was one that had sold for 30% over. And when I looked at the details to make that last little comment, I noticed that it was a new build, and it was listed at 600 and I'm going to guess, but 444,000 and sorry, 644,000. And then it had like a really specific dollar amount, like $615. And they had it listed, they had posted the sale price at exactly 800 and then the same, tens and thousands and down to the dollar. And it seemed really odd to me because it was a brand new build for a townhouse, and brand new builds are not ever priced low. Like, they're priced at the price, and nobody would ever in the right mind pay $200,000 over for a brand new build. So I think that was just an error in the data that was put in, and that'll get caught by the board or by the person who put it in this coming week. So I actually put that one just at asking price and just adjusted my numbers. But regardless, it was just sort of a flag. And every once in a while, there is data that is messed up, and I try to catch it and correct the numbers and stuff as I can. But there could always be some small mistakes. Anyways, moving on, let's look at what happened in the different regions of the city this past week. Okay, so first off, in the central urban region, we see that the active inventory dropped for detached and towns just slightly, and condos went up slightly this week. The sales were up slightly across the property types this week. In Canada and Stittsville, the inventory climbed for detached quite significantly for the townhomes. 120 townhomes on the market right now for Canada and Stittsville seems like a lot to me. And condos, just slight drop in the inventory. Sales were up just slightly for detached, up fairly significantly for townhomes, which again is a bit shocking considering their inventory climbed and their sales climbed. And condos sales were down slightly this week. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, we have a really not much change in the inventory. Detached down by 2, townhomes and condos up just slightly, and sales were just up slightly for detached, steady for townhomes, and up a little bit for condos. And in Orleans, we have the active inventory still remains very high, although slightly decreased for detached homes, 188 detached homes for sale in Orleans. Slight drops across the board actually for detached towns and condos for active inventory. Sales were up slightly for detached and towns, and there were 0 sales of condos in Orleans this past week. Okay, so here's the full data for the detached, and I did want to point out, like, it was a really low-priced week. I don't know, I'd have to look to see what the details were for which types of detached homes sold across the city, but the average sale price for detached homes selling was like $841, which is very low, and only one of the areas topped $900,000. So that's really quite low compared to what we normally see. Again, it could be just that a whole bunch of 3-bedroom with single garages type homes sold, or even ones without garages. And then we have the townhomes. See that the average sale price was actually up over $600,000 in almost all the areas, especially Orleans had a very high-priced average sale price this past week. And then for condominiums, you can see the average sale prices there and 0 sales in Orleans. Okay, so it's a bit of a quick update for this week. If you want the full details from what happened throughout June, you'll have to go back and check the last week. I had the full update with all the charts and everything, average sale prices and number of sales. But I hope you have a fantastic week this week and are enjoying your summer so far. Have a great week.